Because the United States military has been sent to war in Iran by Donald Trump, and because Donald Trump is waging war on democracy in America every day, and because Donald Trump is using the Trump Justice Department in a revenge campaign that we have never seen before, a revenge campaign of attempted false prosecutions, and because Donald Trump's federal invasion forces have tried to take over American cities and shot and killed American citizens who did absolutely nothing to deserve even a single shot fired in their direction, and because of the ongoing worldwide humanitarian disaster created by Donald Trump, destroying the United States Agency for International Development, leaving babies, children of all ages, their parents and grandparents to starve to death. And because also through the destruction of USAID, Donald Trump has taken life-saving medication away from people in a program that had already saved 25 million lives in Africa, a program created by a Republican president. This hour of television, obviously, does not have enough time to cover the details of every political campaign this season and this year. And so we've been very careful about what campaigns we have focused on here. And the reason that this program never once covered the Graham Plattner campaign for Senate in Maine is that those other stories are more important, and that candidate did not appear to me to be the kind of candidate who could make it all the way to November. And so I didn't want to waste this audience's attention on a candidate who might not even be there on Election Day. And at the same time, the Plattner campaign was getting a tremendous amount of coverage everywhere else, and so it didn't really matter in the least whether we covered that campaign here or not, and no one noticed that we didn't. Whenever a new unknown candidate who has never been vetted in any way suddenly surges and creates pundit excitement, I always, from experience, just stay quiet and wait for the vetting. And I knew with a candidacy like Graham Plattner that the vetting would come from the news media. And so it has. And every stage of that vetting, every stage of it has been disturbing. I, for one, did not find any of Graham Plattner's answers to questions about a Nazi tattoo or previous sexist social media comments or accusations by women who had relationships with him, all of which he denied, to be credible at all. I didn't think any of his answers were credible. And I'm in no position to say who is telling the truth in stories now told about Graham Plattner by people who knew him, women who were alone in a room with him. I don't know what happened, but I know, and I've always known, that I cannot believe him. And saying that I never believed Graham Plattner is simply a statement about his own credibility as he addressed these controversies. But his credibility problem for me was always much wider ranging than all of that scandal detail in the reporting about him. The image created by him and by the eager news media was of a humble, roughly educated oyster farmer in Maine who decided he was just mad as hell and couldn't take it anymore, and he was going to step up and save Maine from Donald Trump and Susan Collins, and he could do it because he knew the struggles of the working people of Maine who were being ignored by the Republican policies of Susan Collins and Donald Trump. But he didn't. He's never known those struggles. His most obvious credibility problem to me from the start was saying, quote, "I'm a working class guy that lives a working class life." He also said, "I've never been close to money and power." And that was a lie. He's a graduate of a private high school, and his father is a rich lawyer, rich enough to give the maximum contribution to a Democratic Senator, Ruben Gallego, who endorsed Graham Plattner, and who has now retracted that endorsement like every other senator who endorsed Graham Plattner. Plattner's grandfather was Warren Plattner, who the New York Times describes as a celebrated architect who designed the dining room of Windows on the World, the storied restaurant atop the World Trade Center, and offices for the Ford Foundation building. Before Mr. Plattner was born, his grandfather also designed an expansive family estate in Connecticut that he said was inspired by a chateau in the Loire Valley of France. Warren Plattner is best known for a namesake line of furniture, including mid-century modern easy chairs that today are priced starting at $15,000. And the oyster farmer thing is true, but it's not exactly the struggling version of oyster farmer. His mother owns a restaurant and is the biggest customer for his oysters. And here's what Graham Plattner knows about the affordability of housing. The New York Times reports property and tax records show he bought the home for $205,000 and received a $200,000 mortgage loan from his father. So his father bought him a house and his mother buys his oysters. I found it very, very difficult to take Graham Plattner's claims about himself seriously after reading those facts about him, publicly available facts. But the enthusiasm kept building and building. And when the New York Times reported that he was really a rich kid, the image of honest oyster farmer somehow just miraculously held. Then came the women accusing him of being abusive, and they were ignored by the Plattner supporters and endorsers because Graham Plattner denied the accusations. Then Monday, a woman offered detail of an encounter with Graham Plattner that she said was non-consensual. And yesterday, that woman told Politico about a night in 2021 when Graham Plattner was, quote, deeply intoxicated and forced himself on her while she repeatedly told him to stop. She said she cut off contact with him after telling him the encounter was not consensual. I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me, she said. I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice. And that did it. That report in Politico, using the woman's name, was the breaking point in this story. And here's the big, big problem with that. That same woman had already been an unnamed source in other reporting about Graham Plattner's abusive conduct with women. And she thought what she had said as an unnamed source was clear enough about his aggression with women. But she was ignored. And so the very same person decided that she needed to go public on the record with her name, including in a video interview, and tell the story, tell her story, with all the details of what she says happened to her. And only then did the people who ignored her the first time take her seriously this time, even though Graham Plattner once again denied her accusations. And so it's over tonight. And Graham Plattner is clinging to the wreckage of his campaign, mercilessly and foolishly, dragging out the day and the hour on which he will announce that he cannot find a path forward for his candidacy. And the lesson of it all could not be simpler. It is just one word, and sometimes it's the hardest word for many of us. Patience. It's all it is. When the new exciting candidate emerges, who no one knows anything about, always just wait. Find the patience to wait for the vetting. The vetting isn't perfect, but vetting is the safest way to place your bets. And when someone has already run for elective office and won, and then maybe run for another office and won or lost that one, that person has to some degree been vetted at least by the news media repeatedly. The first time I ever saw Barack Obama was when he was a Senate candidate and he appeared on the stage at John Kerry's presidential nominating convention in Boston in 2004. And I heard that man give a speech for the first time. And I said on television that night that I had just seen the first black president. And I also knew that he had been vetted to some degree already. He ran for Congress and lost and went through some vetting in that campaign. And then he ran for state legislature and won and went through more vetting in that process. And now he was running for the United States Senate and going through vetting in that process. And prior to that, he appeared to have lived a careful life, graduating from Columbia University and then from Harvard Law School, where he served as the president of the Harvard Law Review. That proves to you that he was a hard-working, very serious law student in the hardest law school in America. And so this appeared to be a very serious person, aiming his life in a very serious direction. But during his presidential campaign, something terrible could have come out about Barack Obama because he had never been vetted at the presidential level. But nothing bad ever did come out about him. And he was fully vetted as a presidential candidate, not just by his own campaign, but by the Republican campaign that was desperate to try to find something negative to use against the new bright star of the Democratic Party, who turned out to be the real thing, the real bright star that everyone was waiting for, or everyone was hoping for on that side of our politics. But when a candidate emerges like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has never run for anything and is working as a bartender, it's an exciting campaign to watch, but the vetting could maybe turn up something very harmful in her social media history or somewhere. But when it's a woman candidate, it's probably not going to be sexual abuse. And when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won and became a member of Congress, she was then vetted every single day and continues to be vetted every single day by Republicans trying to tear her down. And it turns out that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was also the real thing, that bright, shining star from out of nowhere, never vetted before, who runs for office and wins, and who is who she says she is, a real hardworking bartender who's now a hardworking member of the United States House of Representatives. Graham Plattner was trading on the positive feelings generated by truly great candidates for the offices they were running for, like Barack Obama and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a familiar feeling for Democrats. That's what he was trading on, and he abused that feeling in people. He abused that goodwill extended to him by the people of Maine. And in his video statement last night, he said that he was humbled.
Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me.
And that is Graham Plattner's one and only appearance on this program. And I firmly believe that he was lying when he said that. Applause does not humble people. That is a cliche politician's lie. I am deeply humbled by your adoration. To find a path forward in his life, Graham Plattner is going to have to be finally deeply humbled, possibly for the first time in his life. Failure is an opportunity. Disgrace is an opportunity. It is an opportunity to rebuild. It is an opportunity to look within through humility to find your way forward in life. Graham Plattner tonight is still not deeply humbled enough to find his way out of his campaign.